Good evening, everyone. I want to start with a question, one that might feel a little uncomfortable. How many of you have ever replayed a mistake in your head over and over again, like a bad movie you can't turn off? You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking, why did I do that? Why did I know better? What's wrong with me? Yeah, me too. Here's the thing. Shame loves secrecy. It grows in the dark. And when we hold on to past mistakes, when we refuse to forgive ourselves, we get stuck. We start believing that we are our worst moments, that we don't deserve joy, that we can't move forward. But that's a lie. Courage is often misunderstood. We think of it as something loud and bold, standing up in a crowd, fighting battles, taking big leaps. But real courage, the kind that changes lives, often happens quietly in the moments no one else sees. And one of the bravest things a person can do is forgive themselves. Self-forgiveness is not an easy road. It's not about letting yourself off the hook or pretending your mistakes didn't happen. It's not about ignoring consequences or acting as if the past doesn't matter. It's about facing yourself fully, your flaws, your regrets, your pain, and choosing to meet them with understanding rather than punishment. That takes an extraordinary amount of courage. When we hold on to guilt and shame, it's often because we believe we should suffer. We think, if I stay upset about this, it means I care. It means I'm holding myself accountable. But accountability and self-punishment are not the same thing. Accountability means learning, making amends if necessary, and growing. Self-punishment is an endless cycle of guilt that keeps you stuck in the past, unable to move forward. Forgiving yourself means recognizing that you are human. You have made mistakes, and you will make more. That doesn't make you unworthy. It makes you alive. Every single person in this world has done things they regret, words they wish they could take back, decisions they would make differently if given the chance. But beating yourself up over the past doesn't change it. What it does is drain your energy, your self-worth, and your ability to show up fully in the present. There is a deep fear in self-forgiveness, a fear that if we are kind to ourselves, we are excusing our behavior, that if we release guilt, we are saying what we did was okay. But forgiveness doesn't mean approval. It means acceptance. Acceptance that what's done is done. Acceptance that you are not perfect. Acceptance that you are worthy of love and healing, even when you've messed up. It's easy to extend compassion to others. When a friend makes a mistake, we comfort them. When a child messes up, we teach them with patience. But when it comes to ourselves, we often default to harshness. How could I be so stupid? I should have known better. I'll never get it right. But if shame and self-hate actually made people better, wouldn't we all be perfect by now? The truth is, shame paralyzes. It keeps us small, fearful, and afraid to take risks. Self-forgiveness, on the other hand, creates space for change. It allows us to move forward, to do better, to become the person we want to be. Forgiving yourself requires a shift in perspective. Instead of looking at your past through a lens of blame, look at it through a lens of learning. What did this experience teach you? How have you grown because of it? If you could go back, what wisdom would you bring with you? That wisdom, that growth, is what makes self-forgiveness powerful. It transforms mistakes into lessons, regrets into stepping stones. One of the most profound things you can do is recognize that you are not the same person you were when you made that mistake. You have changed. You have learned. You have new awareness, new insights, new understanding. Holding yourself hostage to an old version of you doesn't make sense because that person no longer exists. The person you are today deserves a chance to move forward without carrying the weight of past burdens. It's not an instant process. Forgiving yourself takes time. Some days the weight of regret will feel heavier than others. Some moments your mind will replay the past and the guilt will creep in. But every time you choose self-compassion instead of self-criticism, you take a step forward. Every time you remind yourself that you are doing your best with what you know now, you reclaim a little more of your power. The world doesn't need more people drowning in guilt. It needs people who have learned from their past and are willing to grow. People who can look themselves in the mirror and say, I am imperfect, but I am still worthy. That kind of self-forgiveness is not weakness. It is the bravest thing you can do. Shame has a way of taking root deep within us, wrapping itself around our memories, our choices, and even our sense of self. It whispers in our ears when we're alone, reminding us of the things we wish we could forget, replaying moments of regret like a broken record. It convinces us that we are not just people who made mistakes, but that we are mistakes. It tells us that we are unworthy of love, of happiness, of a fresh start, and the more we listen to that voice, the more we believe it. Shame is powerful because it thrives in secrecy. It makes us want to hide our past, hide our pain, hide the parts of ourselves we don't want the world to see. We isolate, we withdraw, we pretend we're fine, even when we're carrying an unbearable weight inside us. But the thing about shame is that it cannot survive being spoken out loud. The moment we bring it into the light, the moment we acknowledge it and face it with honesty, it begins to lose its grip. Self-compassion is the antidote to shame, but for many of us, it feels unnatural. We've been taught to be kind to others, to extend grace to those who are struggling, to forgive people when they make mistakes. But when it comes to ourselves, we are often the harshest critics, the most unforgiving voices in our own lives. We hold ourselves to impossible standards. And when we fall short, we punish ourselves endlessly. We believe that if we are hard enough on ourselves, if we carry our guilt long enough, we can somehow make up for the past. But shame does not create change. It only deepens the wound. True growth does not come from self-punishment. It comes from self-compassion. When we acknowledge our mistakes with kindness instead of cruelty, we create space for healing. When we recognize that our missteps do not define us, we allow ourselves to move forward instead of staying trapped in the past. Self-compassion does not mean excusing our actions or pretending that our choices had no consequences. It means looking at ourselves the way we would look at a friend, recognizing that we are human, that we are learning, and that we are still worthy of love and forgiveness. One of the biggest lies that shame tells us is that we are alone in our struggles. It makes us believe that we are the only ones who have ever made certain mistakes, that everyone else has it all together while we are the only ones falling apart. But the truth is, every single person has moments they regret. Every single person has battled with feelings of guilt, of not being enough, of wishing they could go back and do things differently. We are not alone in this. And when we start to see that, we begin to soften toward ourselves. It takes courage to choose self-compassion. It takes strength to say, I made a mistake, but I am still worthy. It takes resilience to show up for yourself with kindness instead of criticism. And it is in that act of kindness, in that willingness to meet yourself where you are, that real change happens. Because when we treat ourselves with love, we become better, not just for ourselves, but for the people around us. There is nothing productive about shame. It does not make us better people. It does not erase the past, and it does not prepare us for the future. What it does is keep us stuck, afraid to take risks, afraid to grow, afraid to believe that we are capable of more. But when we choose self-compassion, we recognize that we are not defined by our worst moments, that we have the ability to learn and change, and that our worth is not something that can be taken away by a single mistake. Healing begins the moment we decide to be on our own side, when we stop tearing ourselves down and start building ourselves up, when we give ourselves permission to be imperfect, when we realize that self-compassion is not a weakness, it is the most powerful thing we can offer ourselves. We often define ourselves by the moments that went wrong, the words we shouldn't have said, the decisions we wish we could take back, the situations that still make our stomachs tight when we think about them. It's as if our mistakes become the full story of who we are, overshadowing everything else we've done, everything we've overcome, and everything we are capable of becoming. But that story is incomplete. You are not your mistakes. You are not the worst thing you have ever done. You are the person who has learned, the person who has grown, the person who is still standing despite it all. Mistakes are inevitable. No one gets through life without making them. No one has a perfect record of decisions free of missteps or regrets. And yet, when we look at our own lives, we act as if we should have known better, as if we should have predicted the future, as if we were somehow supposed to be perfect all along. But growth doesn't happen without failure. No one learns by getting everything right the first time. We learn by falling, by stumbling, by seeing where we went wrong, and doing better the next time. The person you are today would not exist without the lessons of the past. Self-judgment often keeps us trapped. We replay our mistakes, dissecting them over and over, as if punishing ourselves enough times will somehow rewrite history. But the past is unchangeable. No matter how much time we spend thinking about what we should have done differently, it doesn't alter what has already happened. What it does do is rob us of the present and limit our future. The longer we hold on to guilt and shame, the longer we delay our own healing and growth. There is a moment when we have to decide whether we will let our mistakes define us or whether we will allow them to be stepping stones to something greater. It's easy to believe that our past disqualifies us from happiness, from success, from love, but no one is beyond redemption. No one is unworthy of a fresh start. What truly defines us is not where we have fallen, but how we choose to rise. The strength it takes to acknowledge a mistake, to learn from it, and to move forward is far greater than the weight of shame that tries to hold us down. Growth means shifting the way we see ourselves. Instead of identifying with our worst moments, we have to see the full picture. The times we showed kindness, the times we pushed through adversity, the moments we chose courage over fear. Our mistakes are only a fraction of who we are, but they often take up more space in our minds than they deserve. If we allow them to be lessons rather than labels, they can serve a purpose instead of being sources of endless regret. The way we speak to ourselves matters. If we constantly remind ourselves of our failures, if we replay our missteps like a loop, we reinforce the belief that we are incapable of change. But when we shift our inner dialogue, when we start to acknowledge our progress and the wisdom we've gained, we create a new narrative, one that is based on resilience rather than shame. The words we tell ourselves shape our identity. And if we want to move forward, we must choose words that empower us rather than diminish us. Holding on to guilt doesn't serve us. It doesn't undo what has already happened. It doesn't fix the past. What it does is keep us stuck, unable to move toward the life we deserve. But when we recognize that we are more than our mistakes, we give ourselves permission to grow. We allow ourselves to evolve into the person we are meant to be. We step into the truth that we are not defined by where we went wrong, but by how we rise from it. Mistakes and regrets are part of being human. At some point, we all say things we wish we could take back, make choices that didn't turn out the way we hoped, or hurt people, including ourselves, without meaning to. And yet we often struggle with the idea of letting go. We carry our past missteps like a heavy backpack, convinced that if we hold on to the weight long enough, it will somehow balance the scales. But the truth is, refusing to let go doesn't change what happened. It only holds us hostage to a version of ourselves that no longer exists. Learning from the past is necessary, but dwelling on it is destructive. There is a fine line between taking responsibility and punishing ourselves indefinitely. Responsibility means acknowledging what happened, understanding the consequences, and doing what we can to make amends. But beyond that, we have a choice to release ourselves from the guilt or to remain trapped in it. Holding on to regret doesn't undo the past, and it certainly doesn't prepare us for the future. The only thing it does is keep us stuck in a cycle of self-judgment that prevents us from moving forward. Making amends when possible is part of the healing process. Sometimes that means apologizing to someone we've hurt. Other times it means changing our behavior, ensuring we don't repeat the same mistakes. And in some cases, making amends is about forgiving ourselves, because no apology or external validation will erase our own inner guilt until we allow it to. We have to recognize that we are constantly evolving. The person who made that mistake in the past is not the same person who stands here today, reflecting on it with new awareness and growth. Self-forgiveness requires a shift in focus. Instead of fixating on the damage done, we have to ask, what have I learned? How have I grown? What will I do differently moving forward? Because that is where our power lies, not in endlessly reliving what we cannot change, but in using it as fuel to make better choices in the future. Regret is only useful when it teaches us something. Beyond that, it becomes an anchor, keeping us tied to a moment that has already passed. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean pretending something didn't happen or dismissing the impact of our actions. It means acknowledging the lesson and then choosing to move forward without carrying unnecessary guilt. It is about accepting that we did the best we could with what we knew at the time, and now we know better. That realization is what allows us to grow. It is what allows us to break free from cycles of self-punishment and step into a future that is not defined by our past. Our ability to release ourselves from guilt is what ultimately determines our capacity to live fully. If we are always looking backward, we miss what is right in front of us. We miss opportunities for connection, for joy, for progress. The weight of unresolved guilt takes up space that could be filled with creativity, love, and new experiences. And the longer we hold on to it, the more we deny ourselves the chance to embrace the life that is still waiting for us. Forgiving ourselves is one of the most difficult but necessary acts of self-care. It requires us to believe that we are still worthy of happiness even after making mistakes. It requires us to trust that we are capable of change, and it requires us to choose self-compassion over self-condemnation, knowing that our past does not have to dictate our future. We are allowed to grow, we are allowed to move forward, and we are allowed to give ourselves the same grace that we so often extend to others. Forgiving yourself is not just about letting go of guilt. It's about making space for the things that truly matter: joy, love, and new possibilities. When we carry the weight of past mistakes, we limit our ability to experience life fully. We hold ourselves back from happiness because we believe we don't deserve it. We avoid new opportunities because we fear repeating the past. We push people away because we think we are unworthy of love. But the truth is, self-forgiveness is the key that unlocks everything we are meant to have. Guilt and shame, when left unchecked, create walls around us. They isolate us from the very things that could bring healing. We convince ourselves that if we let go, we are betraying our past, that if we move on, we are saying our mistakes didn't matter. But holding on to guilt does not honor the past, it only deprives the future. Real growth comes when we acknowledge what happened, take the lessons, and allow ourselves to move forward without carrying the burden of self-punishment. One of the greatest gifts of self-forgiveness is the ability to experience joy again. So often, we deny ourselves happiness because we believe we don't deserve it. We think that because we made a mistake, we must suffer indefinitely. But joy is not something you have to earn. It is something you are inherently worthy of, simply because you are human. You don't have to pay a lifelong penance for something that has already happened. You are allowed to feel happiness, to embrace moments of laughter, to welcome the good things that come your way. Love, too, is something that flourishes when we forgive ourselves. When we carry shame, we put up barriers between ourselves and the people who care about us. We become distant, afraid that if they truly knew our past, they would walk away. But love is not about perfection. The people who truly care about us don't expect us to be flawless. They expect us to be real. And part of being real means accepting ourselves, flaws and all. When we extend kindness to ourselves, we create space for deeper, more authentic connections. New possibilities open up when we release the past. When we cling to regret, we keep ourselves stuck in a cycle of self-doubt. We hesitate to take risks, to try new things, to believe in our own potential. But the past does not define the future. Just because something went wrong before does not mean it will go wrong again. Every moment is an opportunity to choose differently, to step into something new, to create a future that is not dictated by old mistakes. The only way to do that is to trust yourself enough to move forward. Self-forgiveness is not just about emotional well-being. It has real, tangible effects on our lives. When we let go of self-judgment, we make better choices. We stop making decisions based on fear and instead start making them from a place of clarity and self-worth. We show up more fully in our relationships, at work, in our creative pursuits. We reclaim the energy that was once spent on self-criticism and use it to build something meaningful. Healing begins when we allow ourselves to receive the good things that life has to offer. The past may have shaped us, but it does not have to imprison us. There is more ahead, more love, more laughter, more opportunities waiting to be embraced. But we can only step into them if we believe we are worthy of them. And we are. No mistake, no regret, no past decision can take away our right to experience joy, love, and new beginnings. Moving forward is an act of courage. It requires us to release the grip of the past and step into the unknown, even when we're unsure of what's ahead. It is far easier to stay in the familiar cycle of regret, replaying old mistakes, convincing ourselves that we are not ready, not deserving, not capable of change. But the truth is, the only thing keeping us from a new beginning is our own belief that we are not allowed to have one. We often wait for some external sign that it's time to move forward. We think we need permission, that we must reach a certain level of worthiness before we can begin again. We tell ourselves, once I've punished myself enough, then I can let go. Once I've proven that I deserve happiness, then I can move on. But there is no moment of arrival, no magic threshold where we suddenly become worthy of a fresh start. The decision to move forward is ours to make, and we do not need anyone else to grant us that right. Fear is the biggest barrier to stepping into the future. We are afraid of failing again, afraid of making the same mistakes, afraid that we will never truly escape the weight of our past. But fear does not mean we are incapable. It only means we are standing at the edge of something important. Growth always feels uncomfortable. Change always comes with uncertainty. But if we let fear dictate our choices, we will remain stuck in the same patterns, repeating the same regrets instead of creating something new. One of the greatest acts of self-trust is choosing to move forward despite the fear. It means believing that we have learned from our past, that we are stronger because of it, that we are capable of making better choices now. We are not the same people we were when we made those mistakes. We have grown, we have changed, we have gained wisdom. The only thing keeping us tethered to the past is the belief that we are still the same person who made those decisions. But we are not. We are here now, ready to move in a new direction. Progress is not about speed. Moving forward does not mean erasing the past overnight or pretending that everything is suddenly perfect. It is a process. Some days will be easier than others. Some moments the weight of regret will creep back in, whispering that we don't deserve to let go. But every time we choose to take a step, no matter how small, we are reclaiming our power. Every time we choose to treat ourselves with kindness instead of judgment, we are reinforcing the belief that we are worthy of a fresh start. Healing does not happen in a straight line. There will be days when we feel free from the past and days when old guilt resurfaces. But the goal is not perfection. The goal is to keep moving, even when it feels difficult. To remind ourselves that growth is messy, that setbacks do not mean failure, and that every step forward is a victory. The only way to truly move on is to stop looking back with shame and start looking ahead with hope. We are allowed to begin again. We are allowed to step into a future that is not dictated by our past. We do not need to prove our worthiness or earn the right to move forward. The only permission we need is our own. And when we choose to give ourselves that gift, when we decide to walk forward even with uncertainty, we are not just leaving behind the weight of the past. We are stepping into the life that was waiting for us all along.